On the 15th and 16th of June, world leaders from almost 100 nations gathered in Switzerland. The only thing on the agenda was Ukraine. As the Russian invasion continues, Vladimir Putin's troops continue to march westward. Villages and towns around Kharkiv have been captured by Russian troops. Ukrainian soldiers are outnumbered and outgunned. Volodymyr Zelensky struggles to push back against Putin's aggression. The Swiss summit was supposed to bring an end to the war, except Russia was not involved. So Putin made his own moves. Just one day before the Ukraine peace summit began, Putin put forward two conditions for a ceasefire. First, the withdrawal of Ukrainian troops from the eastern regions of Donetsk, Luhansk, Kherson and Zaporizhzhia. And second, for Ukraine to abandon its plans to join NATO. Putin says that this is the best deal he can offer.
As soon as Kyiv declares that it is ready for such a decision and begins the actual withdrawal of troops from these regions, as well as officially notifies that they abandon plans to join NATO, an order to cease fire and begin negotiations will immediately follow from our side, literally at the same minute.
For the first time in over 2 years, Putin put forward his demands for a ceasefire. But Ukraine and the West were quick to reject them.
You cannot trust such messages. Putin follows the same path. Today he is talking about 4 regions. Before it was Crimea and Donbass.
Russian President Vladimir Putin is proposing is ultimately to put his imperialist raid into documents. What we need is not a dictatorial peace, but a fair, just peace that focuses on the integrity and sovereignty of Ukraine.
After being snubbed by the West, Putin set out to grab global attention. With the world focused on G7 and the Ukraine Peace Summit, 4 Russian warships entered America's backyard, the Atlantic Ocean. They were on their way to Cuba. And it didn't take long for Putin to send a message to Joe Biden. Out of the 4 warships, one was the Kazan nuclear-powered submarine. And the other was the Admiral Gorshkov frigate. Upon entering the waters of the Atlantic Ocean, both the Kazan and the Gorshkov conducted live-fire drills. They fired long-range missiles at mock targets almost 600 kilometers away. The United States tracked the missile launches. Washington even put its Navy on alert. But the White House played down the Russian antics and said that Putin's warships were no serious threat. After flexing in the Atlantic Ocean, Putin's warships reached Cuba. They were docked in the Caribbean nation's capital, Havana, and locals lined up to get a glimpse of the Russian warships. Even Cuba's president, Miguel Díaz-Canel, visited the Russian flotilla and met Putin's troops.
I saw it, a submarine, and I said, wow, and I took a picture. I have never seen a submarine in Havana in my life. On the internet, I follow a group that talks about submarines. For me, it's a unique thing. I've never seen it before in my life. Impressive.
This type of ship gives a very good impression, is very well kept inside. Also on the tour, they show you the inside structure of the ship. the types of weapons that this type of frigate models can have. It's a frigate to ship, and overall, very nice.
As the Russian machinery drew eyeballs in Havana, Washington sprung into action mode. The United States and Canada dispatched their own warships to Cuba. The US Navy deployed the USS Helena nuclear-powered submarine, and Ottawa sent a patrol boat to accompany the American submarine. The 4 Russian warships were anchored in northwestern Cuba, in Havana. At the same time, the American submarine reached Cuba's south and parked itself in Guantanamo Bay. Putin's warship deployment had been mirrored by Biden. From having 0 submarines, Cuba now had to deal with 2 nuclear-powered ones. The American and Russian submarines were kept 900 kilometers apart. The Kazan is a much newer submarine compared to the American Helena. Both the submersibles are nuclear-powered. However, the Kazan has more lethal armaments. The Russian submarine can carry 32 hypersonic missiles, or 32 land attack missiles. The American Helena can carry 12 land attack missiles. However, the Helena can carry up to 30 torpedoes, 3 times more than its Russian adversary. But Putin's submarine is far more modern and is barely 10 years old. On the other hand, the Helena has been in service since the 1980s and retires next year. Russia says that it sent the warships to Cuba for power projection.
As soon as it comes to military exercises, naval voyages, some kind of joint exchanges, delegations, or observations of various maneuvers, we immediately hear from the Western public questions and desires to clarify, what are these messages about? Why does the West remain completely deaf? And then comes up with the most powerful campaigns to prevent Russian signals from entering its information realm. Surprising, since this concerns democratic countries.
The deployment of American and Canadian warships to Cuba shows that Washington did take the presence of Russian warships seriously. For years, the United States and NATO have sent their warships close to Russia in the Baltic and the Barents Seas. Only this time, Putin decided that he too wanted to play the same game.